the flavor that carried a secret home. Some flavors travel farther than people ever do. They cross borders quietly, survive translation, and arrive carrying more than taste. In one small restaurant, a single flavor became a vessel, holding a secret no one dared say out loud. The dish appeared ordinary. No dramatic presentation. No story printed beside it. It arrived warm, familiar, almost comforting. And yet, for those who recognized it, the first bite landed with a strange weight. It tasted like elsewhere, like something left behind and carefully protected. To understand why this flavor mattered, we have to understand what happens when home becomes complicated, when returning is possible in theory, but impossible in truth. For many, memory becomes the only border that still opens. Food then stops being sustenance. It becomes a method of return. The chef never introduced the dish. He didn't explain its origin or list its influences. He cooked it the way he had learned, adjusting only when ingredients demanded it. The flavor remained steady, anchored, quietly precise. Guests who did not recognize it enjoyed it and moved on. Those who did often froze for a moment, unsure how to respond. Some lowered their forks and stared. Some smiled unexpectedly. Some felt a tightening in their chest they couldn't explain. The staff noticed patterns. Certain guests ordered the dish every visit. They never asked questions. They never offered praise. They ate slowly, deliberately, as if timing mattered. When asked how the meal was, they answered simply, "Good, thank you." What no one said was that the flavor carried something unspeakable, a truth that had learned to hide in plain sight. In public, it was just a dish. In private, it was a signal, a reminder that parts of ourselves can survive quietly, even when naming them feels dangerous. The chef understood this better than anyone. He had learned early that some identities are safest when unannounced, that survival sometimes depends on subtlety rather than declaration. The dish was never meant to reveal anything. It was meant to allow recognition without exposure. As word spread, the restaurant attracted a diverse crowd. Most came unaware. A few came searching. And among them were people who tasted the flavor and understood immediately that it was not just food. It was a way home that asked for no explanations. That quiet understanding would soon be tested, because secrets, even carefully carried ones, have a way of drawing attention. And once attention arrives, subtlety becomes fragile. The flavor had done its work too well. And the next chapter of the story would ask whether something meant to remain unspoken could survive being noticed at all. Attention arrived disguised as curiosity. A writer mentioned the dish in passing, noting how often it was ordered by certain guests. Another described it as unusually specific, anchored to a place most diners could not name. The words were careful, but they pointed, and once pointed at, the flavor began to feel exposed. New guests started asking questions. Where was it from? What did it represent? Why did it feel familiar even when it wasn't? The staff answered neutrally, describing ingredients and technique, never history. The chef instructed them to keep it that way. Explanation would turn recognition into declaration, and declaration would put people at risk. If not physically, then emotionally. Those who understood the flavor felt the shift immediately. They tasted with less ease. Some stopped ordering altogether, afraid of being seen. Others continued, defiant but cautious. The dining room held a new tension, subtle but undeniable. The dish had crossed from private signal into public curiosity. One evening, a guest approached the chef after service. They spoke quietly, carefully. They said the dish tasted like home, then paused. They asked if that was intentional. The chef met their eyes and answered truthfully. Nothing more. The guest nodded, understanding the boundary. That exchange captured everything at stake. The dish was not meant to explain identity. It was meant to allow it to exist without announcement. But now, others were trying to name it, to place it, to claim it. Pressure followed. Inside the kitchen, the dish began to feel heavier, not because it had changed, but because the room around it had. The chef questioned whether continuing to serve was still protective, or whether it now invited the very exposure it was meant to avoid. The conflict sharpened into a single question. Could a flavor remain a refuge once it was recognized as such? The answer would require a choice that could not be undone. Remove the dish and erase a quiet path home. Or keep it, knowing that subtlety was already slipping away. The chef knew that whatever he chose, something would be lost. And as the tension tightened, the flavor waited, unchanged, patient, carrying its secret in plain sight, while the world decided how closely it wanted to look. The turning point came quietly, without announcement. One evening, a group arrived, clearly seeking the dish. They spoke about it openly, loudly, speculating about its origins, as if solving a puzzle. The chef watched from the kitchen, as the flavor was no longer discovered, but hunted. When the plates arrived, the room shifted. Those who recognized the dish felt immediately. The safety it once carried was gone. What had been a private moment of recognition now unfolded under observation. Forks paused, eyes lifted. The flavor still tasted the same, but the context had changed everything. The word stayed. The chef understood then that the danger was no longer hypothetical. The dish had crossed from refuge into symbol, and symbols invite interpretation, debate, ownership. They stopped protecting and start exposing. What once allowed people to feel seen without being named was now asking them to explain themselves. In the following days, the chef noticed subtle absences. Familiar faces stopped returning. Others ordered different dishes, avoiding the one that had once drawn them back. The flavor was still present, but the people it had served most deeply were retreating. The kitchen felt the loss, not as decline, but as silence where recognition once lived. Offers arrived again, louder now. Panels, features, cultural conversations. The dish was framed as important, representative, meaningful. Every invitation promised validation. Every one required articulation. The chef declined them all, knowing that to explain the dish would be to break it. Late one night, alone in the kitchen, he cooked it for himself. He tasted slowly, remembering why it had mattered. The flavor was not proud, not defiant. It was careful, built to survive by being unremarkable to most, essential to few. The realization was painful and clear. Keeping the dish on the menu no longer protected its meaning. It endangered it. The chef faced the hardest choice a creator ever makes. Remove the dish and preserve what it had been, or keep it and watch it become something it was never meant to be. The climax was not about courage or visibility. It was about restraint. And by morning, the decision would be made, one that would determine whether the flavor's secret would be carried forward quietly or sacrificed to a world that could not stop naming what it touched. The dish disappeared without explanation. One night it was there. The next, it wasn't. No note on the menu. No announcement from the kitchen. The absence spoke softly, but those who needed to hear it understood immediately. Some guests asked where it had gone. The staff answered simply that the menu had changed. No reason offered. No replacement suggested. Most diners accepted it and moved on. A few nodded quietly, sensing what had been protected by its removal. Those who had once found their way home through that flavor felt something unexpected. Relief. The secret had not been exposed. It had been released. By removing the dish, the chef returned it to the people who had carried it all along. It no longer needed to be ordered, explained, or watched. It lived again where it always had, in memory, in private kitchens, in moments that did not require witnesses. The restaurant continued. New dishes arrived. Service stayed steady. To most, nothing significant had changed, but the room felt lighter. The tension dissolved. Those who had drifted away returned, no longer afraid of being seen. The chef noticed smiles that lingered a little longer, meals eaten with ease rather than vigilance. The flavor never returned to the menu, and yet it spread. People cooked it quietly at home. They shared it with friends who already understood. It traveled the way secrets are meant to travel, not through headlines, but through trust. No one argued about its origin anymore. No one tried to define it. It belonged again to those who recognized it without needing proof. Years later, the chef was asked if he regretted removing the dish. He paused, then answered with gentle certainty. The flavor had carried people home when they needed it most. It had offered recognition without exposure. And when attention threatened to turn safety into spectacle, it stepped aside. In a world that rewards visibility, this story offered a quieter lesson, that not everything meaningful needs to be shared widely, that some truths survive only when protected by restraint, that sometimes the most caring act is knowing when to let something disappear intact, because secrets are not always meant to be revealed. Sometimes they are meant to be carried. So what do you think? Are we repeating the same mistake again? The